Steven, have you ever been suspended?
I don't. I've been ejected from a game. Haven't been suspended.
You've been ejected from a game. You ever never been suspended from school?
Never was suspended from school. I was a goody two shoes. I was too scared to do anything to get suspended. I was terrified.
I had SIS, in school suspension.
Why?
Wait, does that add up? SIS?
No, just IS or
Yeah,
ISS.
ISS. Yes, that's what it was called.
In school suspension.
Yep,
Okay.
it's where you basically detention.
Yeah,
No, it doesn't really count.
I remember that they had a certain name for that. It wasn't in school suspension. They had a specific name for it back in the day. Where yeah, you just spend the day at school. I remember actually being like kind of jealous of the people who were going through that. I'm like, what? So you just get to go to school, but you don't have to do anything for a day? Like, what's the point of that?
Yeah, no, it was kind of bullshit. And also, I like the way that I said SIS. Does that add up with letters? Letters? Um, I remember in sixth grade, there was like an end of the year party or like a Christmas party or whatever, and you had to have like we had this stupid thing in our middle school where we had different names for our like areas of the school. So we were the Cyclones or the Thunder, and even though that wasn't our school mascot, we were the Jaguars or something like that. I forget. But if you didn't have enough Thunderbucks by the end of the semester before Christmas, then you had to go to in school suspension because you weren't good enough the whole season.
What'd you
So while
get
everybody's having
Thunderbucks
a
for? What?
Christmas party and bullshit, I had to sit and like do homework for the finals that were coming up. Terrible.
So how do you get Thunderbucks?
But I don't even remember. It's terrible teaching skills for kids, just like a currency system for school. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's greed. That's
It
total
is greed.
greed.
It is greed. It's bullshit,
Kidding me?
honestly.
You have enough Thunderbucks, you're allowed to have this Christmas party. If not, and plus, you could also say that it's a little anti-Semitic. It's like, hey, you're not going to let the Jewish guys celebrate Christmas? Come on.
No, that's true. That's very
I
true,
mean,
Stephen.
I mean,
See,
this is that's unbelievable.
stop
We need to
Jewish
have a
hate.
we need to have a we need to have a conversation with your school,
Yeah, well, that's 20
with your
years in the
former
past.
school. Where was that? Was that when you were living in? Was that in
Sugarland,
Texas?
Texas.
Oh my God, Sugarland.
Sugarland, baby. My old stomping grounds. The old watering hole, as they say. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Just Your Opinion, man. Stephen Langford, Derek Papa, talking about Sugarland, Texas, and a bunch of suspensions that are going on in sports. Stephen, please go back. We're seeing you up your nose.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
and trim those nose hairs.
Mm.
A lot to get to. A lot to get to today. We got a lot of things with basketball, of course, the NBA playoffs, and we got a draft coming up pretty soon here.
Mm.
Some fuckery going down. We'll discuss, but we'll get to it all, Stephen. Before everything else that
Can can
happened,
can can I can I can I can I squeeze in something before we get into everything?
squeeze
Because
away, sir.
there's a
Squeeze
lots
away.
that happen. So Jesse and I went to the Giants game last night. Giants have been terrible.
In your sling?
We don't need to talk about it. Yes, and
Why didn't you tell me? I was at the public house. You should have stopped by.
I should have stopped by. I didn't think about it. My bad. I always forget that you're like involved in Giants games now. Um,
Sometimes I forget that too.
so we actually sat up pretty close. We were in like the I don't even know what to call it, like the lower bowl, like with the
Yeah.
not the club level, but the level before that or under that. And so we're just chilling, and then walking by are a couple of abnormally large dudes,
Brock
like
Purdy.
too big, yeah. And then these guys were too big, and they walk by. I'm like, they look like they're football players. And I'm like, I bet you they're 49ers. And then turn around and I see a couple. And then Jesse's like, Field Club. Thank you, Jesse. She's listening, probably the only one. But
What the hell are you, Ernie?
yeah, I know, Ernie. What's up with you, dude? But we get there, and I turn around, and I'm looking at the lineman. That's all I'm paying attention to. And then Jesse's like,
The
wait,
big uglies.
wait, what about the guy without the hat? Isn't that Brock Purdy? So I turn around, see Brock Purdy. He's right there, not a very large dude, and everyone around him. And it was bothering me for until like the third inning, trying to figure out which linemen they were.
Did you find
So
out?
yes, so it was Nick Sikelge, the rookie. I think he was like a seventh round pick last year, or he's a second year player now. Colton McKivitz,
Okay.
It was him. And one that I recognized immediately though was Aaron Banks. I knew it was Aaron Banks right off the rip. He's a Bay Area guy, El Cerrito guy, I think. So I don't know if he grew up a Giants fan or not, but he had nothing. He had like no Giants apparel, and then he goes to the store and he buys like a Crawford jersey and a Giants hat. Crawford wouldn't even play. And then who was on the end? Oh, and this is the guy who wasn't at field level. He was actually waiting for him at the seats. But it was Alfredo Gutierrez, the 6'9" lineman, massive dude.
I did not know that there was a man named Alfredo Gutierrez on the Niners, but that is a fantastic name.
Yeah, he doesn't play too much.
Alfredo
I think he was
Gutierrez.
actually. I think he was a part of the. Was he a part of the practice squad earlier? I'm not sure, but yeah, he's one of those guys. He's massive. So yeah, it was pretty cool, man. And then here's the thing: it was bizarre. I'm sorry, I'm rambling on all morning already.
Ramble
But-
away.
But they're playing the Mets, and this guy walks across, and he looks like just the most stereotypical, like Italian American New York Mets fan. He has on this black turtleneck with a gold chain, black pants, some nice
Turtleneck and
kind of
chain.
dress shoes, and then he's got an old school Mets jersey, no hat. He's got his hair slicked back.
Which player? Keith Hernandez?
Something like that. And
Gerald Strawberry?
And then no, it was a jacket. It wasn't a jersey. Yeah.
black?
No, it was blue. But here's the thing. The camera goes on Purdy, right? And you could tell immediately Purdy did not want to be noticed. I kind of feel bad for him that they put the camera on him, because as soon as they did, like everyone realized it was him over there. There's like a bunch of people wearing like Giants jerseys and 49ers hats, and they had no idea that the section over. Then all of a sudden they see him and they're trying to like take pictures with him and surround him and stuff. Felt kind of bad for him in that moment. But the guy in front of us literally sits down right in front. But the thing is, on the way to the seats, he said hi to these people, and it seemed like these people were kind of starstruck by him. So we're wondering, is this dude famous too? So anyway, after they put the camera on Purdy, then a cameraman comes up to the guy in front of us. He was with his girlfriend. She also was she was sporting a Mets jersey, actually. It was number 23. I'm not sure who that was for. But yeah, so the camera comes up in front of them, and I thought they were getting ready for like another Jumbotron celebrity thing, right? So Jesse and I had like that's what they did with the Brock Purdy, you know, they put the camera on him, put him on the Jumbotron. So I thought that's what the next guy up was going to be. I'm like, is this guy famous? Like, what is he? So Jesse and I were about to like, I don't know, we had beer, so we were going to maybe like chug it or something like that if they were put on the Jumbotron. Turns out they're nobody famous. It was just the camera guy awkwardly sitting in front of them, putting them on TV. And so there we go. He's covering my head.
Wait a minute.
That's him.
Wait a minute. Do you know who that is?
No.
That's Charlie Boots.
Who's Charlie Boots?
Big time Raider guy.
Really?
Yeah, he used to come by 95.7 all the time. He was like, "Hey, I'm Charlie Boots."
Dude, he was Dude, yeah, so
his girlfriend's like a model. Yeah, I know who that is. Charlie Boots.
Dude, they were sitting in front of us. And Jesse has a tendency to do this this
So wait, where are you? You're directly right behind?
I'm right behind his face. It's Mike Wazowski.
And that's Jesse in the hat. Yeah, I see.
Yeah. So that's so funny. So you know who this guy is.
That's Charlie Boots.
So we looked him up on Twitter, and we did see his name, and I didn't want to mention it because it felt like it was creepy that I knew who he was, because we did like a whole Twitter thing.
Oh, so you know that's Charlie Boots then.
So I saw he was like an NFL alumni guy, but I didn't know he was anybody popular. That's crazy.
He's got a popular podcast.
Oh,
I've been on it with Elena Whitley.
Really?
Oh yeah.
That is bizarre, man. So yeah, he was sitting in front of us, and he's just so New York. He's New York, and he's like talking to someone.
I remember I went on the podcast, and he was like, I asked him, like, so what kind of name is Charlie Boots? He's like, oh, what kind of name is Derek Papa? You know what I mean? Hey.
Dude, I swear to God, he said Wilmer Flores was taking it at bat. And this was in the beginning of the game when, you know, the Giants didn't just completely tear everyone's nights up. but Wilber Flores was at bat, and he took a couple of really nice hacks. And he was. I think there was one where he basically hit a home run that was foul, or he hit one off the wall that was foul that could have been a home run. And I swear to God, this guy Charlie Boots, I guess is his name. He goes,
Charlie Boots.
He stands up. He goes, "Hey, take it easy."
What, he sound like the Penguin from the Batman? Take it easy, sweetheart.
Dude, take it easy. So, dude, that's a real. So that's actually wow. So that's someone kind of popular, but
Yeah,
when they
I mean,
when they
it's
put
Charlie
the camera
Boots.
when they put the camera on him, he was like when they put the camera on him, he was like he turns around to us and he's like, I don't know, they just put this camera on me. I don't know what I was doing. And it's like, I don't know
Wait,
why.
He turned around to you guys?
Yeah.
That's hilarious. You just like turn around like, hey,
Well,
because who'd have thought, me, right? I told you it was going to be a crazy day. You know what I mean?
the guy next to us, we were sitting next to this couple. He was starting to stand up and really, kind of just cheering on his team. Actually, he wasn't being like disrespectful to Giants fans or anything. He was just constantly standing up. But the guy next to us, I think he had a couple of beers too, but he goes, "Sit down, John Travolta." That one really got me. I was in tears almost at that one.
That's pretty good. Yeah, Charlie
but-
Boots wanted to hit me up like a couple months ago. Like, he asked if I wanted to play in some golf tournament, and I didn't respond because I don't play golf. But
That's crazy, man. Wow. So okay, yeah. So you know who it is.
I do know who that is. That's Charlie Boots. Yeah, he's a Raider podcast guy.
Oh,
He was trying to be on 95.7 The Game back in the day. He used to come in the studio all the time, talk to me and Elena, was talking to our former program director, wanted to be on the air.
so I had a chance to like network through this entire game.
Yeah, and then you're screaming from behind, telling John Travolta, sit down with your shirt and your shoes.
Dude, this is kind of
hey, Copernicus, get to the back of the line there.
This is disappointing. Oh, this is really disappointing. Oh, damn it. Oh well.
All right, well, easy, Steven. No one's ever been like, oh man, I missed on a chance to network.
I know, right? But like, come on, this is what you're doing right now.
Hey, come on, it's Charlie Boots here. Hey.
This is so amazing. This is amazing. But dude, one of the funniest parts though was Jessie tends to do this. She just randomly, when she screams, she likes to do this kind of weird East Coast accent. It's really bizarre when she does it. I don't know why. She's like obsessed with the kind of Boston, New York accent, right?
Oh, it's a fun accent to do.
It is, and she's yelling right now. But she after the Giants like struck out or hit into another double play, she goes, "Giants baseball, nothing like it."
Yeah,
and like he turns around and goes, it's just, gosh, that's so bizarre.
As some fans just say now, though, Giants baseball, nothing.
There's nothing.
No runs.
No runs. They keep trying to make Sean Jelly happen. Sean Jelly's never going to happen. It's not good.
Yeah, more not like good. Jelly from Analyze This.
Never seen that.
Oh, great movie.
Analyze This or Analyze That. Is Analyze That better than
Analyze This is way better. Analyze That was a money grab. Anyway.
Gotcha.
Baseball and Charlie Boots aside, and that's my goal now, is to say Charlie Boots as much as possible on this podcast. And I'm just going to try to squeeze it in and whatever I'm talking about.
He says the Giants sleep with the fishes.
All right. So that aside, we got a lot to talk about. We got NBA playoffs. We got the Warriors. And Steven, I know you went to the ballpark last night to watch the Giants. And I wonder how many more games A's fans will have. We will get to all that with what's going on in Las Vegas. But Steven, when we ended the podcast last time, as soon as I hit post podcast, I get a notification on my phone from Shams Charania. Draymond Green has been suspended for game 3. And I was like, shit, what terrible timing. Steven, what are you doing? You're like, I'm in bed. Oh, God forbid I can't wake you to do like a 20-second or, like a 2-minute, urgency podcast. So I did one by myself, solo dolo. And yeah, the Warriors won the game. We'll get all to it, but just your reaction to Draymond Green after we thought he was not going to get suspended. He does, in fact, get suspended.
I go back and forth on it. Did not agree with the suspension. Number one, we said that on the podcast. He shouldn't be suspended. What he got was ejected, possibly fined. That's pretty much the extent of how he should be punished. And then they do say there's a history of unsportsmanlike acts in the statement, and I was confused by that one. And to be honest with you, I'm kind of glad we didn't do a reaction podcast, because I think these things, or at least I did it, because these things for me, I need a little like react to the breaking news. I'm good at it, but sometimes my judgment can be, it can be a little skewed when I first see something.
No,
And,
that is fair, because literally that podcast, that 2-minute podcast, is literally just me going, this fucking sucks. Anyway.
but like the history of unsportsmanlike acts thing, clearly the Warriors hated that. And I wonder, because Draymond's talking about their use of the flagrant from 7 years ago, whatever, from 2016. They're talking about because he doesn't get many flagrant fouls. He just gets a lot of technicals. But to me, and as the information kept coming out, I do think that the Kings listing Sabonis as injured had a lot to do with it. At first, I think it did. I think it did. I don't think there's any mistake that, the statement was made about the suspension, and then just under an hour later, that's when the Kings said Sabonis was hurt, questionable with a sternum contusion. I think that played into it. The history thing, whatever. But I also wonder. I know this isn't their job. This wasn't their situation to handle. But I wonder if the NBA looked at how the Warriors handled the punch to Jordan Poole, and I wonder if that had anything to do with it, because all they did was give him a fine and not really suspend him for any games.
But why would that have any bearing on what happened?
I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking, like, would that have anything to do with it? Like, is that part of the history of unsportsmanlike acts? You know what I mean?
I don't. The same thing as Aaron Donald slamming the helmet on the guy in practice.
Nice.
The NBA can't intervene with that.
Right.
So if that's like a makeup thing, I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that would be. But also, there's one more thing. It's I also think, and this is something they didn't mention, and I kind of wish they would, but I think this had to do with the suspension too. It's his lack of showing like any remorse at all. You know what I mean? Like, of course, he was doing that stuff across the court from Adam Silver, but like he didn't look like. I don't know. I think there's something to him feeling like he has like more power than the NBA does, and I think the NBA, this kind of became like a ego thing for the NBA. And I'm not saying it's right. I'll say that to it. I'm not saying it's right that the NBA did that, but I feel like the NBA was kind of trying to stick it to him, and it became way more personal. And I think that's wrong. Personal, I do think it's wrong to make it personal. It is, but also there is stuff that Draymond's done where the NBA is probably like, okay, you say you're going to be the one that decides when you get a technical foul. Okay, we'll give you a suspension.
Yeah. My initial reaction was that this is just, I don't know, too much, because everyone kind of felt like he already been suspended from that game. Like, I thought the flagrant 2 and being suspended for 7 minutes of basketball was adequate punishment enough.
Yeah.
Sorry, if I sneeze, I apologize. My allergies have been terrible.
You're sneezing on the podcast, bro?
I know. I'll try to mute, but these allergies, good God, even Claritin D can't help. Anyway, Draymond. Yeah, like my initial reaction was that it just sucked. Like, to go from he won't be suspended to he is suspended, and then it came out like pretty late on Wednesday night, or Tuesday night it was actually. And my reaction was, like I said, that I thought that the ejection was punishment enough, and I thought it was kind of overkill to then suspend him for the next game. I don't think the injury had any bearing on it. I think it was just the fact that Adam Silver was there, and everything that they said, the history of Draymond Green, his antics after the fact. Like, the stomp was one thing, and I agree that the stomp was bad. There are things that Draymond could have done that could have taken away from the situation. He didn't need to aggressively stomp his foot on his chest, because that did happen. Yeah, I admit that. But everything afterwards, like yelling at the crowd. It's funny to me that Draymond Green said that the Celtics fans got to him last year because he went all in on those fans
Yeah.
in Sacramento, and they're different. I know that they're different type of fan from Sacramento to Boston, but he wanted to go in on him, and I know that they were flipping him off and everything, but he reacted back to him, and that was a lot in itself. And I could see Adam Silver being like, Jesus, like, we can't have this in the NBA. And also, like, hearing Steve Kerr talk about it, like, people asked him this week, like, how come you didn't intervene in that situation? He was like, there's nothing I could have done at this point, which kind of speaks, I think, loudly to Draymond's future. But we'll get to that a little later. As far as the suspension and everything, listening to Joe Dumars, and at first I know everyone's initial reaction was, oh, Joe Dumars, the guy that was on the Detroit Pistons, the bad boy Pistons, one of the dirtiest teams in NBA history. He's going to make the call on someone being, suspended or not. That's kind of hypocritical. Yeah, but also Joe Dumars was one of the least, dirty guys a part of that group.
Mm-hmm.
So listening to him talk and saying that I know Draymond Green, and Draymond Green is a Joe Dumars guy. Draymond Green grew up in Detroit. He was a Pistons fan. Joe Dumars is one of his idols, and he knows him, and they have had, conversations together, and he's mentored him. For him to be the one to tell him, you did too much, I kind of agree with. Now, should have Draymond been suspended? No, but I do understand it. Now that I think about it with a clear vision and more removed and not doing a reactionary podcast in the moment, I do understand why they did it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unfair a little bit. Like, I don't like the idea of, oh, you have done so many things in your past, and that's why we're going to do this. But also, it's kind of you haven't learned suspension. You haven't learned anything. Like, I go back to Draymond in 2016 after them losing Game 7 to the Cleveland Cavaliers, and he said, I will make sure that this doesn't happen again. I will not put my team in this position again. And he has done it repeatedly. So while I don't agree with the suspension, I do understand it a little bit.
Yeah. Like I'm not like, a lot of these people through, so like the Joe Dumars thing, by the way,
by the way, I'll be right back. I'm just getting a tissue.
That's fine. Talking about his former time as a, Kings executive or whatever, like, that's fine. But we don't know what the parting ways was like with him and the Kings organization. Like, he was there when they were losing, and they got rid of him, and he got a better job. I mean, he was promoted, but like, I don't think he was doing anything to try and like support the Kings in any way. And like you just mentioned, he's a Draymond guy. And then on top of that, him playing with the bad boy Pistons, who knows if he was a fan of their antics? Maybe he hated it. You know what I mean? Like, how many of those bad boy Pistons would go on to become NBA executives, let alone an executive vice president? None of those bad boy Pistons would. The bad boy Pistons are going to end up like Dennis Rodman, they're going to end up like Bill Laimbeer, who's just kind of coaching. I think he's still coaching women's basketball. Is that what he was doing? He was doing that during the Bad Boys.
Bill Laimbeer's coaching women's basketball?
He was during the Bad Boys documentaries. I don't know if he still is anymore. I think he was coaching women's college. So I don't know. Like, I just, the whole Joe Dumars making it personal thing, whatever. But yeah, I agree to an extent, and I'm sure there's more to it, but it's just like with Draymond, it's just nonstop. It just never ends. It's like, how are you going to get this guy to control the antics? And it feels like last year, maybe I'm wrong on this one, but last year he was more subdued in that he'd have this strategy whenever he'd want to yell at a ref, he'd like run to the other side of the court. You remember that? Has he
Yeah, a
done
little
that
bit.
much? Has he done that much this year? I don't think he has.
No, I
Kind
mean
of,
he tries to he has an animated conversation with referees, but then they kind of
right.
explain it to him, and he goes, "Oh, that's terrible, that's terrible," but then they keep
Yeah.
playing.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. But I also think the elephant in the room, though. Actually, this might not be an elephant because this actually might be a nuanced take that not a lot of people have had, Derek.
Oh,
Um,
nuanced.
but maybe this suspension was a good thing. Maybe the suspension was a good thing for the Warriors because game 3, they were playing with their hair on fire, man. And Steph is not that outspoken of an individual. And when he says on the TNT post game that when we heard the NBA make the decision and we thought it was wrong, we knew we had to come out here and prove that they were wrong and we could do it still. It's like, okay, so maybe this was the fuel they needed in game 3 because they legit came out with energy that we hadn't seen in this series so far.
Yeah, and Steph had a great line with, Draymond's got history, well, we got ours too. So I do think that it fueled them a little
That
bit.
was a bar. That was a bar. That was a bar right there to close that one out.
A bar. But in the same way, like I thought that was going to fuel them back in Game 5 in 2016, where they had a chance to clinch the finals and they didn't come through with that. So I was conflicted. Just to put a bow on Draymond's suspension, it may have been good for the Warriors, and I don't know how beneficial it is for Draymond, but going forward, I think they're going to be fine in this series, and we'll talk about it right now. But just as far as Draymond, I don't agree with the suspension because I think that Sabonis instigated it, but I do understand it a little bit. And Draymond has not learned. He does the same things over and over and over again. Just compared, though, to Joel Embiid's kick the other night that we saw, I don't think Draymond's intention was to hurt Sabonis. I think it was him just being agitated by him grabbing his leg.
Right.
Joel Embiid wanted to kick, who's it, Nick Claxton?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So he did try to kick him in his, as Charles Barkley put, his private area.
Yeah, his nether regions.
Yeah. So I do think the acts are comparable, but I don't think one's worse than the other.
I agree.
You agree?
I agree. That whole thing, I can't imagine what Philadelphia sports talk radio is like the next day. Comparing the Harden and Embiid thing, it's like you had the wrong, you ejected the wrong guy. Like Harden's
I agree with
bad. Harden's was bad. Maybe a flagrant one, but it didn't seem that intentional. It seemed like he was intentionally trying to push him off. I don't think he was intentionally trying to tap him in the ball sack.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't. So I think they got that one the wrong way around. And Joel Embiid's was much worse. But what was their reasoning for it? They said, I think it was Tony Brothers doing that game? I think it was Tony Brothers doing that game.
I'm not sure exactly.
It might have
But Joel Embiid is out today in this current game that they're playing.
He is, yes, game 4.
Not suspended, just out with a sprained right knee.
Yeah. But maybe it hurts because it hit directly in the non-groin area. That's what they said about Embiid's kick. Like, what? He didn't direct it at the groin? Yes, he did. He just missed.
100% he did, but whatever.
But then again, there's a difference between directing and then executing. You know what I mean? He did not execute.
Did Joel Embiid not get suspended because he's not Draymond Green? That's the part of the suspension that I don't like, is that it's just based on Draymond Green's prior incidents. I do understand that taking into account with the suspension, but also an act is an act. So just because Joel Embiid is a star doesn't mean that you can't suspend him for what he did.
Yeah, agreed. I actually thought maybe it would have been the same thing as did they give him they gave him a flagrant wow, or the flagrant one for that, right? I was about to call it a flagrant wow.
Yes, he did, and I apologize for my allergies are.
I actually thought I thought there could have been a chance that they would have treated it like Draymond's in game 4 or 6 or whatever that was against OKC with Steven Adams, because they changed it to a flagrant 2. It wasn't it wasn't a flagrant 2 initially. He didn't get ejected from that game. I think a lot of people forget that. It was eventually turned into a flagrant 2 because of by Adam Silver upon review. I thought maybe the similar thing could have happened with Joel Embiid, where it's like, oh, I mean, in the moment, okay, you guys made that call, but that was a wrong call. He deserves a flagrant 2 for that. So
Agreed. By the way, whenever I'm out of camera, I just want everybody to know that I'm just sneezing. It's not that I'm like doing coke and then coming up all sniffling and everything.
everyone knows about your habit. It's okay.
I know. I'm trying to get help, Steven.
BetterHelp.com. This is brought to you by BetterHelp. Just kidding. It's not. We're not like every podcast.
Yeah, we don't have sponsors. All right, let's get to the game itself.
Yes.
So, Steven, what'd you think about Game 3? Warriors win 114-97. Much needed win. They had to have it. They got news right before tip that GP2 was not going to play. He was dealing with an illness. And 2 of their best defenders are out, but they get the job done.
Crazy. Well, number one, Kevon Looney had huge Game 6 Grizzlies vibes for me. Like, that's one of the most memorable games. I don't know why it is, but like one of these moments that I always go back on with in my head is the moment where in Game 6 against the Grizzlies last year, where Looney is just a rebounding madman. And when he picked up, I think it was his 21st in that game, he had 20, and then he gets 2. He gets 1, tips it up, someone gets the ball, but then he steals it back, dives on the ground, or no, actually, that was another one. Damn, I'm thinking of another one. One where he gets a long rebound and then just kicks it out to Clay. Clay knocks down the 3, and then Looney just walks on the other side of the court and just flexes. You don't see it from Looney too much. He's not a very emotional type of guy. Doesn't really wear his emotions on his sleeve. So I remember that, and I had those vibes in Game 3. It's just Kevon right from the get-go. He's just showing like, hey, I'm going to be getting a better spot than you. I'm going to be more physical than you. I'm going to box out. I got to be the guy to do this. He knew that, and he did. So that was number one, Kevon Looney. Number 2, Kings played like crap. They were terrible. They were not hitting any open shots. Did not look. There was no rhythm to their game at all. At least in the first couple of games, there was a lot of rhythm to their offense. There's not much to it. It's, hey, we're going to get the ball to our point guards or shooting guards, and we're going to let them do work. You know, maybe have Sabonis hit a mid-range every now and then. But this one, there was no rhyme or reason to their game. And, you know, maybe that's a product of the Warriors defense. And number 3, of course, Steph just being Steph. But nobody really had a great game on the Warriors, but no, except maybe Kevon Looney, but nobody had a bad game either. You know what I mean? Like, no one really played poorly. It felt like everyone, I guess you could say Steph played great. That's just, I think that speaks to how good Steph is. It's just like 36 points, ho-hum, another night. But like, nobody played poorly on the Warriors. I think that's kind of what sticks out. But I also think the Kings were terrible. Like they just looked like a different team.
That played the biggest factor to me. And I, think that everybody did a great job. Steve Kerr got very creative with the lineup. Jordan Poole comes in, and he played guys like Kuminga, and Moses Moody had a great performance, his playoff career high with 13 points. Played Anthony Lamb, played even JaMychal Green. Steph Curry had the best performance. I mean, Steph Curry had the most solid performance with 36 points, but the MVP of the night was Kevon Looney. And this guy came into his own. I should say that. Came into his own. He broke out last playoff run. He had his best season as a Warrior last year, but he's always been solid. He's always been the unsung hero for them. Like, you go back, even though they drafted him right after they won the first championship in 2015, that draft, he was the Warriors' first-round draft pick. And ever since then, the Warriors tried to upgrade. Like, he was a solid player, but they wanted to get better at that position with center. So they tried to get Damian Jones. They tried to get Jordan Bell. Of course, they just drafted James Wiseman a couple years ago. They signed DeMarcus Cousins, and none of those guys panned out. Kevon Looney outlasted all of them. Like, there was multiple seasons where Kevon Looney was an afterthought. They would go get DeMarcus Cousins, and then they would sign back Kevon Looney for a minimal deal when everybody else thought that he was going to go join some other team. So, Yeah, Kevon Looney last year having one of his best playoff performances. He had 22 rebounds in that one game against the Grizzlies, 18 against the Mavericks in one game. He's just been a fantastic, like I said, unsung hero for the Warriors. Um, and yeah, you said it, Steven. The Kings just did not play well. They did not shoot very good. De'Aaron Fox had 26 points, but he was 9 of 22. Malik Monk was terrible. They just did not shoot well. And it
Yeah.
may have been that the Warriors defense was just scrappy and young and getting after him, as Mike Brown said, mucking them up. But I think it had to deal with more with the Kings not doing well. But the Warriors got the win, and they survived this series. And with Draymond coming back and possibly GP2, I think this changes the whole series now.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't.
Hang on one second. I'll be right back.
I also think it was all the guys doing all the other things, man. Like Moses, like you already mentioned, Moses Moody, who knocked down a couple of threes finally, but also like Dante DiVincenzo, even though he had, I think he was 2 for 8 from the field, and you could remember both of his points. He had that just unbelievable move at the end of the first quarter where Steph was like, "Hey, that's my move. Don't take that move from me. Come on, Dante." But there was that shot and then the 3-pointer in the fourth quarter. Like you could remember every shot that Dante DiVincenzo had just because he didn't make that money. But it was all the little things. It was the energy. It was going after loose balls. It was trying to get those rebounds. They were more physical than the Kings. And it's so cliche to use that word, but they absolutely were. And going into game 4, I do have a lot more confidence there. I'm curious to see how the Kings respond. And I also wonder, like, I guess the one guy who has not impressed me so far from the Kings, that is, it's like we're focused on Malik Monk. Malik Monk's not even he's a bench guy. He's the 6th man. One guy who's not impressed me so far in this series, and I thought he was going to be pretty dangerous, is Kevin Huerter. Kevin Huerter has not done much.
No, next to nothing.
And from the naked eye, it seems that way. I can picture in my head, him going in for a couple of layups, and but he's let me see his 3-point numbers. Let me look this up. I got the box scores or the game logs for him real quick. Yeah, he is 3 for 18 from 3-point range right now. 3 for 18.
This whole series?
This whole series.
Wow.
In total, he was 1 for 6 in the last game, 2 for 9 in game 2, and 0 for in game 1. He has not been good so far. I wonder about that. What was the other thing that I wanted to mention? Oh, and the Warriors, they attacked the rim on offense.
Yep.
Like they did not just settle for threes. They were not looking for dumb threes, trying to keep up with the speed that the Kings were dictating it in the first couple of games. The Warriors were dictating the tempo. And whether it was Steph or Andrew Wiggins posting up. I love that. He looked like to be back to his former self there, rebounding. And then Kevon Looney, of course, giving them extra possessions. It was just that's why it was a blowout, because you had one team where pretty much every player was solid to great. And you had another team where they just looked lost. So that's what the product was in game 3.
And it was the first time that they won the rebound game in the series, 59-53. So that was a big deal, obviously, with Kevon Looney's 20 rebounds. And yeah, Steve and I agree with you that Andrew Wiggins played a lot better at playing more of his game defensively and in the post. I think Klay Thompson struggled a little bit again. And once he starts clicking a little bit, and once Steph is doing his thing and Jordan Poole, they should be able to tie the series up come Sunday. That's what we're hoping, obviously. And once Draymond comes back, they'll be a little bit better on defense, obviously. But yeah, I came away with thinking in that game that the Warriors did what they had to do to win the game, but I didn't think anything didn't really stand out that made me feel 100% confident in them the rest of the way. Like they won a home playoff game, which is something that we know that they're capable of. And we know that they're capable of winning home games this season because that's all they've done. But nothing really gave me the idea that they were going to change things once they get on the road. Mm-hmm. And that's the part where, just because they won game 3, I'm not necessarily 100% confident they're still going to win this series. I think it was more so that the Warriors were scrappy and more, they played a better game of basketball than they did in game 2 because, like I said, I hated the way they played game 2. I thought it was so frantic and just unorganized. They were much more organized. They were calmer. They were at home. But nothing really said anything to me that they were going to be able to change things on the road once they had to go to Golden One Center.
Right. The game 5 is going to be nuts. When that happens, the crowd's going to be insane there. But that's the scary part about this series. Kind of like the way that I looked at the Suns Clippers series, which I've already been wrong about. But like I thought it was just going to be every home team winning in that game or in that series. Suns Clippers might be the same here with the Warriors. Like for all we know, it's just going to be, they'll win at home. Kings will win at home, but Warriors win game 6. Then it's brought back to game 7. This thing could easily go 7 games, and that's where anything can happen in a game 7. And that's where people start saying it's the 2 greatest words in all of sports. And I'm like, no, it's 1 great word and 1 great number. It's not 2 great words. 7's not a word.
True.
It's a number. I get really frustrated by that.
Technically, it is a word, though.
Is it? Or is it a number?
It's both. It could be 2 things could be right.
Is a number a word?
Yes. When you write it down. Like
interesting.
The numeral 1 is a number. The word ONE, that's a word.
Yeah, but it's the prevail isn't it? You have numbers 1 through 10. You type out the numbers and then anything, or is it no? It's 1 through 10. You type out the word, and then after that, that's when you type out the number. But whenever we're talking about sports,
in what rule?
It's just like the unwritten rule, Derek. The unwritten rule of humanity.
I don't like your unwritten rules
of the English. It's the unwritten.
I make my own damn rules, Steven.
It's the unwritten. Well, yeah, of course you don't pronounce your T's. It's the unwritten rule of the English language, or in your case, the unwritten rule in an English language.
Damn right.
but whenever we're talking about game 7, though, we always put the number 7. No one ever types out the word 7. See? So 7 is a number. 7 is a word.
Exactly.
No one ever types out 7, though.
All right, semantics, Steven. This is ridiculous.
It's not ridiculous. This is a true gripe, which absolutely should be brought to the forefront of all conversations when we're talking about Game 7 being the 2 greatest words in all of sports.
Steven's gripes.
Steven's gripes, man.
Overall, great.
See, this is why This is why guys like Ernie listen to the pregame show. It's badass, man. It's just this is the type of stuff I make you think. This is what we do on the podcast. Just your opinion, man. We make you think.
Yeah, it's intellectual sports talk radio. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, overall, I was glad that the Warriors got it done because going into the game, obviously, with no Draymond Green, no Gary Payton, my initial reaction was, well, they're going to have to outscore them. And Warriors had probably their best shooting. Well, actually, you know what? I would say game 1, they had their best shooting performance because they scored 123 points. They didn't really need to explode offensively because the Kings were off and the Warriors played better defense all the way around. But I still think they could play better. And I hope that once they get Draymond Green back, they have figured out some things with the Kings. Maybe the Kings won't be as strong for the long haul as long as the series progresses. So maybe the Warriors will benefit in that. But still nothing really said to me that they're going to win this series. They just were able to win a must-win at home.
Yeah, and maybe Draymond too maybe he gets a different perspective from the game. He hasn't been. It doesn't feel like he's been that great this series. It feels like he's been okay.
Not really.
He hasn't done anything where he stood out to. It's like the standout Draymond defensive performance. I haven't seen that yet. Where it's like let's just say there's a turnover on offense, and then it's Draymond who's the only other guy on defense, and it's like 1-on-3, but they can't figure out what to do. Like I wonder if he's like watching film and maybe he gets a different perspective as opposed to when he's on the court. I don't know. Maybe that's it. But do you subscribe to the whole idea that maybe the Ewing theory?
What's the Ewing theory?
Maybe they're better without Draymond Green. The Ewing theory is kind of that same thing with the Knicks. I think
Was that a thing back in the 90s?
it was created by Bill Simmons.
Oh, well, yeah, Bill Simmons knows all.
Yes, he does. But I remember it became a popular thing though, where a star athlete that receives a large amount of media attention and fan interest, but crucially never leads his team to any meaningful success. Okay, never mind. It's not the Ewing theory. That's
No, because Draymond has led them to success.
because he has led them to success. They would not have any of their rings without him. And I agree with Steve Kerr when he mentions that.
Well, let me just say this. I do think that it's a sign of the future of what we saw in Game 3.
Yeah. Without him?
Without him, yes. But as far as this series, no, they still need him to win this series. I mean, obviously in the offseason, they'll make upgrades to replace Draymond Green, I believe. But no, they still need him to move on and be a championship team this season, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know. You can look at all the ways in which their offense is different and how, things, maybe there was more spacing on the floor. I don't know. The fact that you kept Kevon Looney out there and, it wasn't necessarily with a Draymond and Looney lineup where you're essentially playing 3-on-5 when it comes to the offensive style. I don't know. Maybe it's I think there's something to it, but it's just ultimately what it comes down to is bottom line. They're not as good of a team without Draymond on it. Like that's what it comes down to me.
No, they're not. But also I'm sure in the back of people's minds and even the Warriors themselves are like, you won that game pretty convincingly without Draymond. Now, again, it's just one game. And of course, the Grizzlies were able to beat the Lakers without John Morant, and the Bucks were able to beat down the Heat without Giannis. But both of those teams know that they need those superstar players to help them advance throughout the playoffs. And Draymond Green, is not the same type of player like Giannis or John Morant, but he needs to be there in order to, go on in the playoffs. So I think the win benefited the Warriors, but nothing really stood out to me as a sign that they figured out the Kings yet. I think Sunday is going to be extremely telling. Like I said, I was extremely impressed with Kevon Looney's performance. I think that he's able to, stand up to the task of playing against Sabonis. He got foul trouble early on, I think. Like he got a foul like really quickly in that game, then never got fouled again, I think, till the fourth quarter. So that was good.
Which I thought they were going to go straight at Looney too.
Yeah,
I thought that was going to be their MO. Just immediately, hey, any chance you get, you drive the basketball towards Kevon Looney and you try and draw a foul because he got in foul trouble by the third quarter. Get him in there again.
Well, let me ask you this. Tom actually brought up a good point yesterday. Who is the most irreplaceable Warrior in the starting five?
The most irreplaceable?
Yes.
Steph.
And then who?
I'd make that argument, Steph.
And then
then after that, well, Clay, to be honest, he is replaceable. I know he's great at shooting threes, but you can replace that. You can replace that now, which he'd probably hate to hear. But there's that. Wiggins, we clearly just saw that Draymond can be replaceable, but
so answer the damn question, Steven. Who is it?
Yeah, oh man, it might be Looney.
That's what I'm saying.
It might.
I agree with Tom, and even in the fact that Steph is an amazing player, if you need to get, like we've seen it this season, if he is hurt, you could bring in Jordan Poole to replace him.
Yeah.
The way that this team is constructed, it does not have a big man besides Kevon Looney. So he is the anchor of the team right now.
Right. Yeah.
And he has been pivotal to their success.
What, JaMychal Green? You want to go with JaMychal Green? No.
No, you do not. No, you do not.
No, thank you. Like that didn't work. Yeah, and also it's just within the Warriors system too. Like it's something that Kerr preached after the game, and it's the way that he talks about Looney anytime that Looney has one of these types of games and he gets a chance to talk about him. But he says he understands everything. He doesn't make mistakes. He knows where to be. Like he does whatever we ask of him, and he does it correctly. That type of guy you can't really replace. It's at least on the Warriors team. You know what I mean? You want to be the first guy you'd take if you had your choice of NBA players and you could pick a starting five out of and make an all NBA team. He wouldn't be your first choice, but yeah, he's right there.
So that's why I think he's the most undervalued Warrior, because throughout the years he's always been there. He's just a reliable guy. Like
Yeah.
even during the playoff runs of 2016 and 2017, he was, he was interchangeable with Zaza at times, but Kevon Looney's just been always the guy. He's always just been the reliable center, and I'm glad that he's coming into his own. Started last season, like I said, but he earned that contract that he signed in the offseason. So I'm happy that Kevon Looney has been Dennis Rodman like, as our man Evan brought up in the post game.
I think it was a great question by Evan. I think that also age has helped, and it's grown his conviction in being able to handle these younger players. You know what I mean? Like back when you were talking about those days with Zaza, I mean, he was what, 21, 22 years old, maybe back
Kevon,
those days.
yeah, he was young.
He was young, man. Back in, I mean, he was, when was he drafted? What we were talking
2015.
2015, and he was drafted when he was 19. So yeah, he was probably like 21, 22. And I think what comes with age is you get a little bit more of that grown man strength. You fully grown into your body, and you have that confidence. Like, hey, I'm not going to get knocked around by these young dudes. I'm going to get into a better position. So I think that all comes to it. Like these last two, to be honest with you, man, like I don't think Kevon Looney's always been this guy. It feels like he's become more of this guy over the past couple of years.
Oh, he's gotten better, but I think he's always been reliable.
He's been there, but there's also times where I'd go on the air the next day and I'd also wonder where the value is in Kevon Looney. Like, what's the point? You know,
No,
like
I mean, I get that. What I'm saying is that they always try to upgrade. Like I said, they always
Right.
try to get better guys. And at the end of the day, Steve always liked Kevon Looney more than anybody else just because he knows what to do in their scheme. So,
Yeah.
yeah, Steven, he has matured and gotten better as a 20 rebound guy in the playoffs. He wasn't that guy in 2016 and 2017, 2018. But he's always been just, all right, Kevon, yeah, run out there as the 5 right now.
Right.
He's just
right.
always been a solid guy, and
Right.
he's gotten better as time has gone on.
Right. And there's also like a difference between maybe what I'm talking about, which is like he didn't necessarily have the talent that you'd want to see.
No, he did
in a
not have the
big man.
talent, and we have not seen him
Yeah.
play to his potential until last season, and it's been great. Like I said, like prior to last playoff run, he's been reliable but not great. Now
Right.
we've seen him actually play up to his first round status.
Yep. Agreed. It's watching him just it's almost more fun than watching a game where Steph heats up. Watching a one where Kevon Looney just goes up these offensive rebounds.
They're fun in their own ways, but nothing beats Steph Curry going off the way he does.
Well, you want to watch Kevon Looney offensive rebound? Look, Derek, I'm a basketball guy, okay? I'm a savant. That's why I like watching offensive rebounding more than your typical casual scoring.
Oh, yeah. Keep that same energy, Steven, when I break down the defensive lineman of this year's draft.
Oh, shit. Can't wait for that. Oh my God, you're gonna be like your dad. You're gonna be breaking down like the 3. He's a good 3 technique guy, but I don't know. He might be more of a 9 tech. We'll see.
He's got great feet. The way my dad describes certain plays sometimes a little on the creepy side.
Yeah, he's like the Quentin Tarantino of sports talk hosts.
Easy. I don't need that image in my mind. We'll end the basketball conversation with the Warriors on these few subjects. Do you believe that the winner of tomorrow's game, Game 4, wins the series?
No, I don't believe.
I don't either. You know which game I think wins this series?
Which?
Game 5. Even if the Warriors lose tomorrow and they're down 3-1, if they can win that game in Sacramento and stop them from clinching that series with all of their crazy fans and not lining the beam, I feel confident in that.
I'll hold you to that. I don't really.
Damn right you will.
I'm not big on that kind of saying like whoever wins this game wins the series. I'm like, no, whoever wins the series wins the series. Like I
guess that makes sense.
In the last game of the series. So I'm going to say whoever win it. I mean, all I can tell you is, hey, whoever wins tomorrow, if the Warriors win tomorrow, that means there's going to be a game 6. That's all I know. So whoever wins the game 6 might win the series. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? I don't really buy into that. Although I might have been that guy when the Warriors won, what was it? Game 4 last year against the Celtics when the Warriors came back and won Game 4. I was like,
To
okay,
tie up the series 2-2, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, the Warriors win that one, they're winning the series. Like, I remember thinking that.
Well, that was pivotal because if they didn't win that game, they'd be down 3-1, and that was Steph Curry's
And that was a Steph game.
best performance hands down as a Finals MVP, and that will go down in his legacy. But yeah, I do think there are shifts in momentum in series, and while the Warriors did win on Wednesday, no, when was the game? Thursday. I don't think momentum has shifted to the Warriors' favor. It has in some aspects because they won the game and they've shown they can win without Draymond and GP2. And I think it was more so just I've heard differing things about the fans at Chase Center, that they were rowdy and riled up and making a difference in that game. But also I heard that it wasn't as loud and lively as Golden One Center. But that could be also just the fact that the Kings fans have been waiting so long for this series.
Yeah, I'm not even going to compare the two. Like, the Kings have waited 16 years for this. That energy is going to be different. I'm not going to. No fan base is more passionate than the other just because of this. It's like Sacramento's been waiting for this. Of course, people are going to show up to that. I don't know about the Warriors stuff because I do work alongside on KCBS. I work with Matt Pittman, who is the Chase Center PA announcer, and he said, well, it was easily the loudest that we've heard it this year. And he's like, obviously, because it's the first game of the playoffs. So he's like, people really, because he doesn't always peruse through social media like we all do, and sees the fan reaction. And I was like, yeah, dude, like a lot of people seem to be calling out the Warrior fans there. And thank you, Ernie. I did drop that. I'll pick that up. I did drop that name, sort of. But he said, dude, I don't know what they're talking about because it was pretty loud. Like, from my vantage point, it was pretty loud. So,
but was he at the first two games?
No, no, he's just speaking from a Chase Center perspective.
No, I mean, I get
everyone's
that.
talking about Steph at the end of the game and how everyone's supposed to be going nuts, but I'm also at the same time like, the game was a blowout. Like, if anyone's ever been to a blowout game before, if anyone's still like screaming and obnoxious, there's times where I'm just like, okay, calm down. Like, the game's over. Tolbert cracked his beer on air like with 5 minutes left to go in the game. I mean, the thing was over. The thing was over a long time before Steph did that whole thing where he had to get the crowd on their feet. I don't know. That's just me. And that's what comes with winning too. It's like this fan base is different, man. It's like this team's gone through different things. Yeah. Shoot, they had one loss in an entire postseason series.
I know. And those were good times.
How crazy is that? We've seen this before. That's the thing. It's like we've seen this movie before.
Yeah.
Spoiled.
We are in some respects, but also this is why I keep things in perspective sometimes. And even if they don't win the series, I'll be content with what they've accomplished in the past. But it would be nice to win the series, especially against the Kings. But let's see what happens tomorrow. If they tie the series up, I think that bodes well for them in the long run. Like I said, as long as this series progresses, I think it helps the Warriors with just their preparation and knowing how playoff series goes. But I do think that the last game was more on the Kings just not shooting well and kind of feeling things out in Chase Center and knowing that they didn't really have to win this game. They have the favor in being 2-0 in this series. They do need to win a game at Chase Center, I think, for the Kings to have momentum in the series. So maybe it happens tomorrow. But yeah, I think the Warriors were scrappy and good, but I need to see more, especially with Draymond back and GP2 hopefully back tomorrow. One final question with the Warriors. Do you think, and we talked about this last podcast a little bit, but do you think that the suspension will play a role in Draymond Green's future?
I mean, if they had any thought to give him a max contract, maybe that's gone out the window now. But no, I think that's the writing's kind of been on the wall with that whole thing, regardless of the suspension or not. And I think Draymond kind of knows that too. Maybe that's partially why he doesn't care too much. Doesn't seem like he cares too much about it.
Yeah, I would say that decision's already been made.
Yeah.
And I think that in the way that Steve Kerr talked about it and Bob Myers talked about it, kind of like, they all kind of mentioned his checkered past. And I think Steve Kerr not going to get Draymond in that situation kind of speaks volumes that he's just done with it. And I think Bob Myers is done with it. I think that the Warriors organization is done with it. They want to move on from Draymond. So I don't think that this adds to it, but also is just a little cherry on top to be like, oh, you got suspended in the playoffs this year.
Right.
That doesn't help your case either. So I do think this is Draymond's last season, like I've said before. And yeah, I think that he, even in his podcast yesterday, said, like, oh, I didn't know I could be suspended for something I did in 2017. You got to have a little remorse, man. Like, that's part of it, too, is just not really caring that he stomped on Sabonis. But I don't know. He, didn't really apologize for Jordan Poole's punch. He kind of did, but also kind of whatever apology he had was kind of taken back from then his TNT documentary, which I thought was weird.
Yeah.
So
they should make another one.
Yeah, especially now.
With just a bunch of circle lights in front of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Steven. Let's get to the A's. Whew. All right. So, the Oakland A's. This is no surprise to me, and I apologize. God, my allergies are just terrible right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, the Oakland A's, they made their intentions known back in 2020 during the playoffs, actually, where they were looking to find a new location for the team. And back then, even, it felt to me like, okay, well, they're gone. It's kind of felt that way at the Coliseum for the last 3 years now. I told you I went there a couple of weeks ago to see Shohei Ohtani play, and that was fun. But prior to that, I went to a game last year, Memorial Day, against the Houston Astros, and it was just the worst I've seen the Coliseum, as far as trash all over the floor, no coverings on the seat. I couldn't even sit down on my seat because my ass was burning from the pure metal that was on the chair. So, and the A's do these terrible things where they don't want their fans to show up. They totally sabotaged opening day last year, where they didn't have the concessions going up. So for me, when you hear the news earlier this week that the A's bought a bit of land in Las Vegas for $1.5 billion for a 30,000 seat ballpark, I wasn't shocked. Although, you go back to what Fortenbaugh told us and the fact that the Vegas doesn't want the A's. I kind of agree with that, but then also in the sense that they just, they don't have a lot of options. So they're going to take a MLB franchise. And it's a lot of mixed feelings, a lot of mixed emotions, obviously, because this, whenever this goes down, and it sounds like the A's have been given the okay to play at the Aviator Stadium. So they will not be staying in Oakland the amount of time that it will take to build a new stadium. So, I live here in Oakland now, and it's kind of bittersweet because I love this area and I love the city, but it does kind of feel a little empty without having all three teams play here. Because I walk around Lake Merritt all the time, and it's a beautiful area. And every time I get to the end where the museum is, that's where the Warriors parade would always be. And I'm like, God, hey, if they win another championship, we can. No, it's not going to be there now. Or like, hey, it's football season. Go see a Raider game. No, it's not there anymore. A's are still here, but it doesn't feel like they're here. And it just sucks. It sucks because I love Oakland sports and I love the Coliseum. And every time I think about it, I think of my childhood of just going up the BART ramp and going through that tunnel. And that's going to be your day of sports, whether you're going to an A's game, Warriors game, Raiders game. That is my vision of sports, is at that location. And that place is going to die. And that just hurts me deep inside. So I'm not surprised by the news. It's just sad and it sucks. And I wish that the A's ownership did something different. It seems like they're not even interested in baseball with the way that they handle the team, from John Fisher to Lou Wolf. And I'll say this to that slimy guy, Dave Cavill, just a the whole rooted in Oakland thing is just a slap in the face to the city of Oakland and a fuck you to the fans. It has been for quite some time. And I rarely agree with Mark Davis, but I do agree with him in his statement earlier this week where he was saying how the A's kind of fucked over the Raiders and their whole way of trying to stay in Oakland. And I do think the Raiders did want to stay here until a certain point where they just couldn't get things done. And their rooted in Oakland slogan was a also shot to the Raiders. And now they're being hypocritical in themselves. So Raiders. A's, whenever you leave, it'll be sad, but I've been prepared for this for quite some time.
Yeah, I think a lot have. It's just reality sets in and it sucks. Like my mom called, like I was still in the middle of reporting and my mom calls me after I was done with my my last report on it. She was just so angry because she was listening in the car and she's on the way and the reality sets in. And yeah, I'm glad you brought up Mark Davis. Like that's what the decision making has been. It's gotten to a point where even Mark Davis is making good points about something. Now, granted, I'm not going to act like I'm a business savvy guy. I'm not going to act like I understand economics. But to me, if you're an owner of a team and you want that team to stay in that specific city, like you're going to do anything in your power to get that done. Like Mark Davis just being pushed around by the A's back, however long ago that was, but before they signed the 10-year lease, like Al would have never let that happen. Like Al would not have gotten pushed around by a baseball team, especially one. I mean, at the time, the A's were having way more success than the Raiders, so maybe there was a little leverage there. But I'm going to always subscribe to that. But the rooting in Oakland thing, the slogan, yeah, it was all just a farce. Clearly, all just a farce. You're not rooted in Oakland. You don't care. They care more about their earthquakes than they do with the A's. And the Earthquakes have the worst team right now in Major League Soccer. At least not right now. They did last year. They had one of them. Right now, I don't think they're that bad. But anyway, it was just a long time coming, and it's like the Coliseum has been home to these iconic moments, but there's not much that's changed about it. At least in my lifetime, it was, it's cool to say, with Oakland fans, like, what was it? It's a dump, but it's our dump.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that way for 20 years. You know what I mean? Like you can't be just repeating that for 20 years. At some point, ownership has to realize like you're that dedicated. They don't care about the fans, though. That's not their business. Their business isn't the fans. Their business is to try and make money for the team. And that's something that they weren't doing with the A's. Reggie Jackson just mentioned that. And maybe it's part of their own doing. But also, I'm not fully convinced this thing with Vegas is done. Like, there's a lot of hopes. There's a lot of hurdles they still have to clear, ones they couldn't get done here in the Bay Area, even though they tried multiple times, whether it was San Jose. Giants said, screw that. Maybe that was the wrong idea. But Giants said, this is our territory. We're not giving it up. Laney College, they said no. Fremont, that whole thing just was gone. And then this Howard Terminal site business. It was cool. But since that photo was released with their plan of what it would look like, it's really been all downhill since then, whether it's missed deadlines and kind of the nail in the coffin to me was when that whole loan was denied. It was the federal loan where they created a program, the Department of Transportation did, where they were going to, fund infrastructure improvements around the country. And here's one on a platter for you, on a green and gold platter. Like, hey, we have this new stadium. We want some help funding here. You got this program. It was the mega program is what it was called. And they were denied. They denied that loan because they said it wasn't going to be worth the investment. And it was not that big of it was huge for the infrastructure, but in the grand scheme of things, it was $172 million, I think, is what the total was. That's not much compared to the $12 billion in total that it was going to cost to build the complex around the Howard Terminal site. There's so much that goes into it, man. But yeah, it's just a sad week for A's fans. And I can't lie though. I was watching when I was there against the Angels. I think it was the first season. No, it was the second season series, or was it the first? No, it was the first series of the season. And it was that Sunday where Trout and Ohtani went back to back. But I was just watching like the stadium, and it it felt like it was dying. It just the
Yeah.
atmosphere, anything that we've seen. Like I know I'm a Giants guy, but to be 100% honest, like I went against the grain. A lot of people, they get their sports fandom, politics, wherever they get a lot of it from their parents. And my parents tried raising us to be A's fans. My brother, he was a big Giants fan, and I just followed my brother because I always copied my brother in anything that he did because I thought he was cool. Big mistake. But yeah, but so the Giants have always kind of been my favorite team, but I've always had this affinity for the A's, and obviously, growing up a Raiders fan too, like going into those little walks on the Coliseum with the painting up above on the entrance with Dennis Eckersley, or if you go to like Gate C, it's got Raleigh Fingers. It's got that cool one with Bolitnikoff and I think it was Ken Stabler sitting on their helmets. I think Dave Casper's in that, or Todd Christensen or somebody. Like, just that was kind of what I grew up doing. And I remember going to, I think we were at the Jeter Flip game. I think we went to the Boston game, and I didn't even remember this, but it was Barry Zito in his heyday. This is 2003. It was Barry Zito and Pedro Martinez on the mound. And unfortunately, the only thing I remember in that game is Johnny Damon when he was on the Red Sox. He ends up colliding with the second baseman and had to get carted off the field. I went to that. Didn't go to many iconic Raiders moments. I didn't start going till like 2005, so didn't really see many great moments there, except for watching Luke Lawton try to make a play on special teams. But
oh, come on now.
But
Michael Crabtree's touchdown.
No, the best, my favorite moment was my last Raiders game. I think it was the last one I went to. It was against the Jets. It's when Jalen Richard had like a 70-yard touchdown, and that's when Marshawn Lynch started going dumb on the Jumbotron, and everything started going downhill after that. But the tailgating, the atmosphere, you're not going to replicate the Vegas Raiders have had trouble replicating that. Mark Davis is already complaining about the fandom. I still need to see it. Kind of like we need to see it in the series for the Warriors. I still need to see it with the A's. It's just like, okay, they're moving to Vegas. This is instantly going to become a success. I'm not convinced by that.
I'm not convinced by that. I'm not convinced by that whatsoever. That's going to be a success. As far as we know, they could sell the team as soon as they go to Vegas. Yeah, I think this is going to be done though. Like I hear you and people that are much more knowledgeable about the situation, like Casey Pratt. He thinks that it's not a done deal yet, but it's getting pretty close here.
It does feel like there's mutual agreements here. It never felt mutually agreeable with anything, whether it was everything that I mentioned, whether it was the city of Fremont. Didn't feel like the A's really wanted to move there, and I was living there at the time. It would have been a 5-minute drive from my house. Whether it was the A's moving there, the Giants in San Jose, Laney College not wanting them, it's always been one-sided. Feels like it's mutual here.
Yeah, and it's been hard to hear people like my father talk about this, and Susan Slusser, and that's how I grew up. That's baseball to me, is the Oakland A's, and the seeing old pictures and seeing old video of the Coliseum packed for the Bash Brothers or the early 2000 teams. You can't blame the fans for this. You can't blame them. And I saw that there was going to be a reverse protest thing where fans were going to show up to the game and pack the stadium up and kind of show that the ownership is screwing them. It's not the fans, it's you guys. But then again, I'm like, I like the
You're still
spirit.
Giving money.
Exactly.
You're still giving money to them.
Exactly. Like me and Rick Tittle were talking about that the other night, and he and I kind of agreed, like it's not a smart protest. What they should have done is just gather around the Coliseum and protest.
Yeah.
And there might be, I think there's going to be a protest coming up at the end of April here for a game on the 28th. But it sucks. It just sucks.
Yeah.
And I think about all the memories there, and it's not done yet. But for Oakland sports fans and people like me that grew up at the Coliseum, just the idea of that place being empty for nothing, just kind of. Yeah, just does not sit well with me.
No, I know. I can't imagine how you're feeling, man. And your dad is like, this is why it's kind of been, I think, his transition to being the Niners play-by-play guy. It's still, it's still kind of in the works. I think people are still kind of trying to get used to it because your dad's kind of been synonymous with Oakland sports through
No,
his
that would
time.
be
Of course, I mean, of
that,
course he had, the Giants pre and post game and stuff like that later on. But we were looking up these home videos, right? My mom just picked up a bunch, and this wasn't included in the home video necessarily, but there's one I'll remember where it was her birthday. It was like it was back in the early 2000s, and you see, they got the cameras on my mom, and you got me. I'm in like my little league gear. I'm just getting home from a game or something, and then you turn to the TV, and then you see your dad and Fosse about to call an A's game.
yeah.
It's just things like that, man. We've, especially with our age, like it really, I know you're an old ass man, but especially with people around our age, it's kind of been like a staple of the childhood. And, my friends who all grew up, a lot of them grew up Oakland fans. They've said they're kind of numb to it at this point because of how much they've been screwed over. It sucks, but yeah, I mean, it's everything that's been leading up to it. It's kind of been like a Novocaine for Ace fans,
Oh no, 100%. Like that. That's why I didn't really feel anything except just sad of the memories that will, just always will be there, but there won't be any new memories.
Yeah.
But then again, like that's how I felt the last 3 years. Like the A's, right now they're a terrible product on the field, and it's not like like the Giants slogan, like nothing like it. Like the A's, it's not even like the old Warrior slogan of it's a great timeout. It's not a great timeout.
Right.
It sucks to go to the Coliseum right now. Even though I love that place, and yes, it is our dump, there was a certain charm to it. But now I feel like they intentionally try to make it as bad as possible for you not to go to the games.
Yeah. Yeah.
Between,
They're
I know they
trying.
try to doll it up with the food trucks and whatnot, but like, I don't know.
That was just the thing they took from the Earthquakes playbook, though. That's what the Earthquakes do. And it's
Yeah,
awesome. They have like this whole area right outside the field where you can go. They line up food trucks and you get your food, and you have the biggest outdoor bar there. It's state of the art. And then you look at the A's, and it's like, hey, we've given you food trucks. That's it.
yeah.
We've given you Scheid Park Tavern. That's it.
Yeah, my
We've
advice
given
to
you the Treehouse. That's it.
Yeah, I mean that I do like the Treehouse, but yeah, that stadium is in disrepair. I will tell A's fans, you can feel however you want to feel. If you want to keep going to the games, go for it. But if me personally, like it's going to take like something significant for me to go to that ballpark again. Because
What
at
about
this
free
point,
tickets?
well, that I only go for free tickets now, thanks to a friend
Few
of ours.
Few people.
But I would tell A's fans, what's the point of going to the games right now?
Yeah.
They're not a good product on the field.
Yeah.
They're telling you that they're not going to stay in your city. Unless you just love the team so much and you don't really care about Oakland, then, whatever.
Mm.
That's your prerogative. But to me, what's the point of going to games right now?
Yeah. Yeah. Like what's going to happen to, some of these food vendors that we've come to know and love? The hot dog guy nowadays. He's kind of funny.
Hal?
Yeah, Hal the hot dog guy, or the dude Steve, who one time when I ordered a snow cone from Steve, it dropped. I'm not kidding. The whole cone was frozen. It drops out of the cup, and it's stuck in one piece. Steve grabbed it with his bare hand, put it back in the cup, and handed it to me. I paid him the money, and I ate it. Steve. You know what I mean? Like, it's just guys like that. What's going to happen with them?
Oh, everything. I mean, from the people that do the wave to Banjo Man to, the guys that do fantastic bear hair.
Yeah.
Just
or the guy in right field. Like,
Yeah.
the guys in right field, I feel terrible for them. I mean, they've stuck through this team through thick and thin, and now they're just being rewarded with nothing, like literally nothing. They've got a lifetime full of memories for sure, but they also like just get thrown off to the wayside here and kind of treated like the Coliseum, which is, yeah, we're not going to do anything for you. I just feel terrible for them. It's just everybody, man. Everybody. Remember that guy? Remember that guy who used to sell the programs? Programs.
Yep.
Programs. I remember that guy. He used to
Yep.
scare me. I used to be terrified. I didn't know. I walked like 20 feet away from him,
Well,
Hal is unemployed? He's not there anymore? How would you know, Ernie? You said you've never been to the A's. You haven't been to the Coliseum in forever. How would you know? I saw Hal there. I saw him on Sunday. I think. The Sunday that I went. Maybe I'm wrong.
Regardless, yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of people that work. It's not good for the city of Oakland. It is, like the people that used to work at Oracle Arena that had our jobs. Now there's going to be people at the Coliseum that are our jobs, and it's just terrible all the way around. So
He found out from Twitter. Hopefully, this guy was verified, Ernie. Hopefully, you knew.
Yeah, God forbid blue check marks taken away. People are freaking the fuck out.
Especially Jason Alexander, your boy.
What, George?
Yeah, did you see him? I'm done with Twitter. I'm done.
Why? Because his blue check mark was taken away?
Yeah.
Whatever. It's the same shit.
Hal graduated with a PhD and he's looking for a job. Good for Hal. He was really good for the job, man. Anyway.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with if that deal actually comes to fruition, but just sucks. So, A's owners, I'll just give you a screw you, and long live the Oakland A's and Oakland A's fans.
Yeah, and good luck with Davis. Hey, good luck with Mark Davis clearly still holding a grudge, and he says that he will not cooperate unless they're under new management. So good luck with the guy who is an owner of 2 of their franchises out there. So
yeah, how about that? Vegas taking both Oakland teams.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. I thought they were going to move to like Portland or something.
I could have lived with that, honestly. I could have lived with a better, location. Vegas, I have nothing against the city and everything, but just, I don't know. Vegas A's just doesn't, sounds bad.
Yeah, doesn't sound it. Yeah, Cavill's trying to sell it. He said it has a nice ring to it.
Sure, he does.
I'm like, Las Vegas Athletics does not have a nice ring to it. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna go in on Dave Cavill. Dave Cavill is just like the wormiest dude in a movie that like is part of like the business aspect of things, just like a villain. Like he just irritates the hell out of me. From his tweet a couple years ago with I'm at a Vegas Knights game. Boy, this is a real fan experience, huh? Like he knows what he was doing, and his whole thing was to get the A's out of Oakland. Like listening to all the shit that went down the last few years with the city of Oakland, trying to get the Howard Terminal site built, and the A's just being like, yeah, sure, whatever, yeah, great, let's go with that, yeah, gondolas, cool. It's all just bullshit. It was all for show. Rooted in Oakland, like I said, is just just all bullshit.
Yep.
Anyway, Steven, how much time you got? Because I hadn't even scratched the surface on the football talk.
To be honest, I do not have much time.
Oh, how much time you got left?
Maybe like 5 minutes.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
We've gone for an hour and 20.
Yeah, I know. We've been going a long time about the Warriors and A's here. All right. Here's what we'll do then. Oof, I'm not going to be able to squeeze this in time. All right. So between the draft talk, I guess we'll say that for next podcast, between the defensive lineman and the secondary that I will.
Are you going to do linebackers?
No, because honestly, the linebackers in this draft are not very good.
Because there's one guy that I...
Drew Sample?
Yes.
I'll bring him up, but yeah, it's not worth it going through a whole thing. So next podcast, this is going to be long, we'll do a whole thing on the defensive linemen and the defensive backs.
Drew Sample? Who's Drew Sample?
Drew Sample, I want to say Missouri or Arkansas.
No, that's not the guy I'm talking about. I'm talking about a linebacker from Utah, I think. Anyway, whatever.
Not a great linebacker draft. Not a great linebacker draft. So I'll stick to the defensive linemen and defensive backs. But real quick, before we get out of here, just to get this topic out of the way, Trey Lance.
Yeah.
Ian Rappaport brought this up. He said that teams are calling the 49ers to gauge their interest in trading away Trey Lance. And my reaction is, well, yeah, I'm not surprised by that. We saw a couple weeks ago that Mac Jones has been on the trade block. There's just always guys that, like, NFL teams will always take calls on guys. Doesn't mean they're making calls. There's a difference between making calls and taking calls. Like Shanahan and Kyle said, the same guy. Shanahan and Lynch said a couple weeks ago, we'll always listen when people call. Doesn't mean we're going to actually, take the deal. So for me, yes, they'll listen to Trey Lance trade talks, and if they get a deal that they're blown away by, they may do it. Like we're hearing all this stuff with C.J. Stroud maybe falling, and the Texans don't want to take him. If D'Amico Ryans wants Trey Lance, and that could be a thing for the future. But in my opinion, I don't think the 49ers are in a position to trade away Trey Lance yet. You don't know what's going on with Brock Purdy. You don't necessarily know if Sam Darnold is going to be the starter or a good backup yet in this Kyle Shanahan scheme. I think he will be, but you don't know that yet. It's not in their best interest to trade Trey Lance right now. I think that they need to see how he does in training camp, see how he does the first few games of the season, if he actually is going to play. If there comes a point where they get a great offer by the trade deadline, then maybe they consider that. But I think this is the season that's make or break for Trey Lance, and then they can decide about his future. But you don't need to trade him right now.
To be honest with you, I don't think this was I think this is just something they had in the holster, and I think this is just news to keep it going. I think it was a slow news day. Nothing's happened much in football lately. There's been no headway within Aaron Rodgers, whatever's going on with Lamar Jackson. They needed something new. I think they were sitting on this news for a little bit. Of course, teams have called about Trey Lance. It's like immediately when the GM says, hey, Brock Purdy's the starter. Okay, this guy who's expected to be your franchise quarterback, probably going to be the backup. Hey, we need a guy who could possibly be a starting quarterback on our team. Let's call him. Of course, they were fielding calls. I think this was just a slow news day and a report that just happened to surface. I don't think there's anything to it. Because also anyone logical would understand there's no benefit to for the 49ers in that case. What are they going to trade him for? You know what I mean? Are they really going to get him that much in return for him to where it would help their team? Probably not. I don't think the value's there as much as everyone else thinks. So I think it's a non-starter. I personally do. I don't see anything to it. Maybe later in the season, if Purdy does become the starter, and let's just say by the time August rolls around and training camp's getting there, we're hearing about Purdy's recovery. Obviously, seeing him at the game last night looked like he could lift his arm pretty well to wave at the crowd. So maybe
better than you.
Going on. Oh, way better than me. I couldn't move. I was in a sling. I wanted to go up to him and be like, dude, I'm under your recovery timeline, sort of. I got 6 weeks of rest and 6 weeks of exercise, except his is a little different. But
and then I'm sure Brock Purdy coach up said, hey, I'm talking to my guy Charlie Boots here.
Yeah. But I just think it's a non-starter, man. I just think that was a story just to kind of have a story and keep interest around the NFL until the draft comes up next week.
I don't know about that. I do think that was a actual thing, just a matter of that's like, an agent telling Rappaport, hey, get this out there for a little bit and see if it bites. Yeah. I do think there's legitimacy to maybe Kirk Cousins for Trey Lance, but then again, that doesn't seem like equal compensation to me. So I do not expect Trey Lance to be traded next week, but I do expect some possible movement if he does not claim the quarterback job this season. So we shall see about that. All right, Steven, we went on for way too long on this podcast about the Warriors and A's. It did not make a time for the draft. Harumph! So we'll do that come Monday. We'll do a show on Monday. We'll react to Game 4 of the Warriors and Kings. We'll do a whole draft deep dive. Maybe do even a second show on Tuesday if there's not enough time for the draft talk. But that's the plan for now. And I know you're geared up for the draft talk. I can see it in your face.
I can't wait. I'm just.
Do you not care about this at all?
I don't remember any of the names that you mentioned.
In my past couple of draft deep dives?
I mean, I love your passion for it, and I love that you're doing all this research and stuff.
I'm just trying to sound smart when it comes to this shit, to be honest. I have no idea what I'm talking about. Just stealing things from Daniel Jeremiah and Mel Kiper.
I think you got to keep going with it, though.
Damn right I will.
We need to get you like a wig, like a wig with a slicked back hair like Mel Kiper when you're talking about him. He's got 4th round talent, but he's got 1st round speed.
Who the hell is Mel Kiper? It's still one of my favorite.
That's the best.
All right, we'll do more of that next week, but we'll still be talking about the Warriors and what goes on with them. So thanks everybody for watching and listening. Ernie, better late than never. And next time I will try to keep my allergies on hold. I felt like I was sneezing and just gross this whole podcast, so I apologize.
No, you did pretty well, I think.
Yeah.
And you
like I
didn't
said.
comment on my mug. It
What
says
mug?
hello, beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
I was trying to make you feel good, man. I'm a boy. You're my boy. So I wanted to, just let you know, hey, man, you look beautiful this morning.
I'm your beautiful bald friend.
Yes, you are.
All right, Steven. On that note, Charlie
All
Boots,
right.
say what you always say.
Charlie Boots, it's just our opinion, man. Hey, it's just our opinion.